Hey y'all, it's me Amanda, and I'm here to talk about what I read in March. This video, if it ends up being too long, I may have to split it into two pieces, and then I'll probably post them back to back, one day after the other, but I'm hoping to fit it all in one go. We'll see. 12 books this month. Last month, I have to be honest with you guys, I lied accidentally. One of the books that I talked about, I had actually read this month. It was an audiobook, so whoops. But yeah, we'll see. I'll try to remember to count them. Number one, let's start with the physical books. I have Faye Kellerman, Blindman's Bluff. Now, this is, a typical, crime mystery thriller. Basically, it's about a very rich family that lives on a ranch, and they are murdered, along with two of the guards and a maid, and then two of the guards are missing, but one of the family members does survive. And this is about the investigation to figure out why it happened, who was behind it all, etc. So we're following Peter Decker as he investigates and tries to figure out, what happened. This was pretty meh. It wasn't, terrible or anything, and most of it made sense, but I had some issues with certain pieces of it. There is a particular clue that nobody seems to, find that interesting, but I thought was interesting, and I thought was potentially a big clue. And there's also another, loose thread that doesn't make any sense. That was disappointing. And it was something that it was fine up for most of the book, but then at the end you realize that this particular piece really didn't make sense. And I'm not a genius or anything, okay? I'm not that smart. But if I'm able to point out things that don't make sense in the mystery, it can't be that good. You gotta be smarter than me, not an averagely smart person. So it was fine. I gave it 2.5 stars. It was written, I forget when, before the 2010s, I believe. So it's a little there's a few little mildly racist digs and stuff like that. It's not terrible, but just a heads up, it's not to modern, current sensibilities. 2.5 stars. It was fine. I don't really recommend it though. We'll just go through the physical pile. Shady Hollow by Juneau Black. I read this because I wanted to try cozy mysteries because I think that they would totally be my thing. And this one is really cute. It's they're animals, but they wear clothes and they walk around like people and act like people, but they're animals and they live in the woods. And it's the cozy part is, there's a cafe that they go to and a bookstore and, all of that. So this one, the mystery is a grumpy old toad. I think his name's Otto. A grumpy old toad is murdered. And Vera here, the fox, Vera Vixen, she's a reporter and she wants to figure out what's going on because she thinks that the cops, who are two bears, are incompetent, and she decides to investigate herself. And this, this is what I really wanted to absolutely love this because it seems like it would be totally my thing. It was fine. The mystery itself made sense. The clues made sense. The pieces fit together. I was a little disappointed that there were certain things that you're just maybe you should be looking for more physical evidence. That kind of annoyed me. Because I felt like there was more of a possibility to be finding physical evidence, but that was overall a lacking thing in this book. But it is, and it wasn't quite as cozy as I would have expected, unless you equate cozy with them going to the cafe and drinking a heck of a lot of coffee. That's the cozy aspect of it. It's fine. I enjoyed it. It wasn't amazing. I gave it 3.5 stars. I stand by that rating. And, you know, I'll get the next one. I think it takes place in the fall, so I'll wait a bit and read it seasonally. This takes place in the summer, so if I'd known that, I would have waited a little longer to read this one, but that's fine. I'm a bit of a seasonal reader, so I like to try to match the season for books, but, you know, it just doesn't always work out that way. Next, we've got Looking for Alaska by John Green. This is a young adult contemporary. So this one is about a young man named Miles who gets nicknamed Pudge. He's going to, I guess you'd say, a boarding school. This poor guy, he has, like, no friends. So he's like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go to a new school and everything. And he gets a roommate who's quite a hoot. And, of course, meets a girl named Alaska. And this centers around the friendship between these characters and what's going, you know, and just kind of like the bond between them and whatnot. And, you know, it's in a young adult contemporary. That's what's going on. But there's a big event that happens in this book. And I thought, this book's been out a long time. And I thought that one thing was going to happen, and the big event ended up being something very, very different. So I'm not going to tell you what it is, because I thought it was good to be surprised personally. Most of you probably already know. I mean, but this was a fantastic book. It's a really good book looking at the different emotions of these characters. I'm trying not to say more specifics because, again, I'm trying not to spoil it. But looking at the emotions of the characters, I felt like the way they react to things was very realistic. Even if it was annoying sometimes, I was okay with it because I was like, this is realistic. That young teenage kids would be acting this way, you know? And yeah, it hit really hard. This is the kind of book that I honestly think I would recommend for most people to read. I think there are just certain books that are universally like books that people should read, and this is one of them. Now, I say this with the caveat that also you should never be forced to read a book you don't want to read or something like, you know, it sucks that you're kind of forced to read certain books at school. But if there's a book that, you know, I think serves a purpose, this one. I gave it 4 stars. I feel like this is more like a 4.5 stars. I don't know why I only gave it 4 at the time. It is a really great book. Then I read Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. Now, this book, wow. So, basic premise. It's about a girl named Pip. And Pip wants, for her senior project, decides to investigate a murder that happened in her town. A very popular girl went missing. And then the popular girl's boyfriend, there was a confession text, and he was found having took his own life in the woods. So everyone assumes he did it. But Pip is like, I don't think he did it, and she wants to investigate this. This book is great. It's really, really twisty-turny. It keeps you going. Like, you end up getting enough clues sprinkled throughout that it keeps you going, keeps you really interested, and the pieces all make sense. The motives as a whole, I'd say, make sense. It is a fantastic book, and I was impressed. This is what I want from a thriller mystery kind of a book. Like, I read 2 other ones that were like really meh. Now this is how it should be. This is fantastic. I gave this 5 stars. I try to save 5 stars for favorite books. I had a lot of 5-star reads this month though. I got lucky. So this was fantastic. Highly recommend it if you want like a young adult mystery thriller. Next I've got So Long and Thanks for All the Fish by Douglas Adams. I would love to tell you what the plot of this book is, but there is no plot. There's nothing. Like, it's basically Arthur Dent gets a girlfriend. Good for Arthur. That's it. It is utterly pointless. I'm sorry. I know I'm being mean. This is just a case of this book is not for me. It's not that it's bad. Now, it's so funny. I complained about the last book, because the third book in the series, because I was like, there's no plot. There actually is a plot in that book. Like, halfway through, something does happen and it goes somewhere. This, literally nothing. I don't know. It doesn't have a plot. This is the kind of book, if you just want something funny and absurd, and you like little asides where he's like, and by the way, on this planet, there's this speed, like, these people do this, blah, 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 blah. It's funny, but, like, that's the whole book, and, oh, it was torture. I did not like it. I gave this one a flat 2 stars, and, like, I ended up rating Life, the Universe, and Everything, like, a half star higher, because I was like, that one looked way better in comparison. I'm not continuing with this series. This is all of the books we physically own. I know there's another one that Douglas Adams wrote. I hear that it's a poopy ending anyway, and then someone else wrote another book, and I'm done, and that's fine. Like, it's not for everyone, and I'm okay with that. It wasn't for me. I'm not saying it's bad, just not for me. Next, I read Uprooted by Naomi Novik. Wow. This was amazing. So, just the basic, like, almost just the first line of this book, I was, like, in it. So, the basic premise of this book is there's a town in the spooky woods, and every 10 years, they sacrifice a girl to the dragon. The dragon is not actually a dragon. It is a man who's like a sorcerer. And he basically, in exchange for protecting their village from the spooky woods, he wants a girl. He takes a girl. He takes her for 10 years. And when the girl, he does let them go. And when they come back, they typically stay in their town for like a month, and then they move on and leave and do other things with their lives. None of them ever stay. So, immediately, this premise is like, so good. So, we have our main character, whose name I do not know how to pronounce. Because I read it, I didn't do an audiobook. Agnieszka? We're going to call her. So we have our main character, and she is best friends with a girl named Cassia. And Cassia, she loves her best friend so much. They have a really close bond, but everyone's convinced Cassia is getting taken. Cassia is beautiful. She's amazing. She's good at everything. She's brave. Everyone loves Cassia. They're like, dragon's taking Cassia. So, like, Cassia is treated differently as a result, but she still has a great best friend. And so everyone's waiting for Cassia to get taken, and I know you're going to be surprised. He doesn't take Cassia. He takes our main character instead. So, basic premise, it's immediately intriguing. I wanted to know what was going to happen. We get a great romance in here as well. I love romance, as is very obvious and apparent. It's not like super steamy. It's open door, but like not very steamy. But it's fantastic. It's a great fantasy, like, fairy tale story. Kept me captivated the entire time. I read this so fast. And, like, there's just so many little details in here that I loved. Like, the spookiness of these woods. When you start to learn more and more about what the woods do and how they corrupt things. And, like, the spooky descriptions of how people behave and everything. Oh, I loved it. It was great. I was thrilled the entire time, captivated. I loved this book. This is one of the few books, like, I would read a chapter and then just sit there and, like, hug the book and be like, I loved it. This might be my new favorite book. Like, period. Like, this is one of my favorite books. 5 stars, easily. If I did 6 stars, this would get 6 stars. This was amazing. I absolutely loved it. Highly recommend. Sorry. Lastly, for my physical books, I have Wench by Dolen Perkins-Valdez. Now, I got this, I think for free or very, very cheap at one point. I had vaguely heard about it. This book is about women, unfortunately slave women in the U.S. who are basically the mistress of their slave owners, and you know they end up having children by these men, etc. Yeah, I mean, this is a sad one. I mean, unsurprisingly, considering it's about slavery in the U.S., it's very sad, and don't expect a happy book. A lot of horrible, sad things happen in this. It wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad book. The ending is, I would say, unsatisfying. Like, there's some sad, there's some happy, but just as a whole, it felt kind of unfinished to me. Like, I wanted to know more about what was going to happen to certain characters, and you never find out. So, it's fine. It wasn't my thing in the first place. I don't typically go for sad books, but I've owned it for a while, and I was like, well, I'm going for it. I gave it 3.5 stars. I think that's appropriate. It was. It's not a bad book if you like sad and you like hearing about different aspects of history that are very unpleasant. Go for it. Like, I think this is the kind of thing, it's important to know that this stuff really did happen, but it's not necessarily something I always want to read, you know? Alright, now let's go into the books that I read digitally and my one audiobook. Okay, first digital book I read, and I'll try to like insert a picture, was The Shadowed Sun by N.K. Jeminsin. This is the second book in the Dreamblood duology. So I talked about the first book last month, and it's basically, it's kind of like For Humors-based fantasy world that is ancient Egypt-y, kind of a little bit. It takes place in a desert like world civilization, and you've got these different countries, and they're all different, like the way the cultures are. It's very interesting because the way the book portrays it is not as like positive or negative necessarily, just there's good and bad things about every single culture. It's very interesting. So in this book, it takes place about 10 years, I think, after the last book. So we have, we do see some of the same characters. We also get new characters. I don't want to talk about the plot too much because obviously it's a spoiler for the first, but just let me tell you, I loved this book. This is another like new favorite. Like, it was fantastic. Maybe not a favorite like Uprooted, but like this was really, really good. And this is like more of a darker fantasy series, which normally I'm not into that sort of thing, but it was great. It was chef's kiss. It was so good. Like I said, I think what makes this really good is the fact that there's this look at these different cultures and these different aspects of these cultures, and there's no judgment on whether one is good or bad. There's no good or evil. They're just different. And trying to make it like kind of work, going from the conclusion of the last book into this one and seeing how things have changed and where they need to go for the people. And in this book, you have this really big, scary problem. And it was very scary to me, it stressed me out a lot, but most of the plot focuses instead on 2 other characters. Anyway, we've got one character who is like a healer and one character who is trying to become a leader, I guess you could say. And most of the plot actually focuses on them, and it's just potential spoiler depending on how people feel about it. Just warning, it's a romance, and it is a great romance. Loved it, okay? This is not, it's not like hot, or, I would say it's like technically open door, but like barely. But like, I didn't know that's where this was going, so it was a really pleasant surprise. We're gonna end spoiler right there. But highly recommend this book. I really enjoyed the ending. It was perfect. It was like perfect throughout. Totally recommend the Dream Blood duology. Great stuff. Highly recommend. 5 stars. Next, we've got The Dragon's Bride by Katee Roberts. So, this one, whatever plot there is, it's basically there's a lady, her name's Briar Rose. No, really, that's her name. And basically, she was in an abusive relationship with her husband, and she's trying to escape, but she doesn't have any friends or family at all. She has no support. She doesn't know what to do, so she signs a contract with a demon, and she's going to have to be married to some person-like creature for 5 years. And so she ends up marrying a dragon man. And I'll show the cover. He's a dragon man. And that's it. This is basically erotica, aka smut. It's not, there's hardly any plot. That is the plot. And there's a little bit more, but not much. This is as deep as a puddle. It's basically an excuse to write smut with a dragon man. I'll admit, it was hot, but there's no real connection between the characters. I think this honestly could have been really good if there had been actual, real good conversations with the characters and it had been more of a slow build. I think I would have really loved it. But, again, it's very shallow. There's not much to it. I don't think I'm going to continue the series. It was fine. I'm up for something weird, but I'm more of a you need a connection between the characters kind of gal. I gave it 3 stars. Next we've got The Lady Gets Lucky by Joanna Shupe. This is about a young lady named Alice, and poor Alice has the worst mother ever. Her mother's super overbearing, mean, and just constantly putting her daughter down and also destroying her marriage prospects in the meantime. So Alice, she's like, I need to get away from my mom. I need to get married, but I'm so shy. I don't know how to talk to men. What do I do? So she finds the rakiest man she can find, a gentleman named Kit. And she's like, Kit, bro, help me out. I heard that you're good at making ladies all sexy. So can you help me get a husband? And that's it. Basically, he gives her lessons kind of a thing. It takes place, it's a historical romance, takes place during the Gilded Age, to also give some more context. This is the second book in a series too. I haven't read the first one. This is honestly really, really good. I rated it a little lower than I normal. I was in a very bad mood when I read this book. I was just not in a good headspace. I honestly think it's me and not the book because there's so many fantastic things about this book. There's a real connection between Kit and Alice. They have a lot of conversations. They really get to know each other. It doesn't move the relationship too fast. The relationship is based on actual connection and development and not just a physical relationship, despite the fact that he's giving her lessons and stuff. I felt like Alice is a very relatable heroine. It's very understandable to see why she feels the way she feels. But she still has motivation. She has hopes and dreams. And I thought that was great. And her hopes and dreams made total sense. Fantastic. Kit is a really great guy. He's a bit of a self-loathing hero. He doesn't think very much of himself, but he's honestly an amazing guy. He's very thoughtful. He is arguably rather feminist. I loved his views of how he viewed women and how he treated people. He was honestly a really great guy. And this book definitely is a historical through a modern lens. You gotta be real about that. But I personally liked that aspect of it. I didn't find it completely unrealistic or anything. It was thoroughly enjoyable. I highly recommend it. I gave it a 3.75 stars. I like StoryGraph. I like being specific. I think this is really, it really was more like a 4-star book. I was just in a super bad mood at the time. I know a lot of other people love it, and I highly recommend it. Fantastic stuff. And I actually do plan now on, I heard that the other books weren't as good, but I'm going to go ahead and give at least the first book a try and give it a, give it a try. I'm interested. I'm sucked in enough that I want to continue. One of my last digital books that I read this month was Perfect Chemistry by Simone Elkelis. We're just going to go with that. This one is a young adult romance between a good girl named Brittany. Brittany is like, she's like super popular, very beautiful, well beloved by everyone. She has, she's a cheerleader, and her boyfriend Colin is like, I think he's a football player. And like, her life is just wonderful, perfect rainbows, at least on the outside. But in reality, she does have things that stress her out, and she has challenges in her life. And then for our main hero, we have Alex. Alex is a Latino gang member, and he joined a gang in order to help protect his family. He has 2 younger brothers and his mom. His father was murdered when he was young. And it's a tough life for Alex. He, as you can imagine, is a pretty gruff guy. And of course, they end up as partners in their chemistry class, and it's a romance from there. Now, this book is something that I think I would have loved if I'd actually read it when I purchased it, like 10 plus years ago. I think I would have loved it. But at this point, I'm just like too old for this. I loved young adult. I still like young adult quite a bit, but like this just wasn't, it wasn't for me. I wasn't impressed with Alex. He was better than Colin, but that's like a low bar. Colin was terrible. But he just wasn't, I didn't find him very romantic. He didn't do anything for me. There was nothing about him that really screamed that he just didn't do it for me. I feel like he was never as nice to Brittany as I would have appreciated. You know what I mean? This is more of like maybe slightly bully romance, I guess you could say, maybe a little bit. I just wasn't really into this. I did like Brittany, and I did like seeing, the aspects of her life. I feel like a lot of it was kind of glossed over. Like, I think there's an important revelation that happens later in the book that I feel like was barely mentioned. And I think it was really, really important. And we barely hear anything about it, which was unfortunately disappointing. So, it is what it is. I think if you're into young adult contemporary romance, this is totally worth checking out. It's not bad or anything. I give it 3 stars. That's not a harsh 3 stars. My 3 stars are typically, I enjoyed it, but it didn't wow me or anything. And that's basically how I felt about this. So I have one last book. I finished one audiobook this month, and that was Clariel by Garth Nix. I only finished that one because it took me a long time. It is slow. That is a slow book. To be honest, first let me tell you what it's about. Clariel takes place quite a bit, I forget exactly, it's a way before the events of even Sabriel. So it's way before the original trilogy. And Clariel is about a character you see way later on in the stories. And you get to learn her backstory and why she becomes the way she does. And basically this whole book is Clariel being upset because her family has moved to Belissaire, the capital city, and all she wants to do is live in the forest. That's all she wants to do, is just live in the forest and live a happy cottagecore life. That's what this girl wants. Not even cottagecore. Like, she doesn't want it to be pretty. She just wants to, like, be happy out in the woods. And no one will let her do this. And that's a big mistake. My husband described this book as a tragedy, and I completely agree with him. This book is a tragedy, basically. I thought it was good. I honestly thought it was good. It's very slow, though. And honestly, I wouldn't recommend this book unless you're really into that Old Kingdom trilogy. I really actually enjoyed it quite a bit. I liked the world building, and I liked getting more into this world and getting a bigger feel for it and finding out like interesting little, I love like interesting cultural things that that writers will do in fantasy worlds. I really, really enjoyed it. But I gave it 3 stars because it is really ridiculously slow book, and like it also felt a little bit unsatisfying. Like, you do get a good idea of why she's going to become what she does become, but at the same time, it's like there's still some of it missing. Like, it seems like it should be okay by the end. Like, everything seems like it should be fine. So it's kind of weird. Anyway, I still enjoyed it despite the lower rating. I'm really more excited for the next one, Golden Hand, which we'll see. And I don't know if I mentioned, I listened to this on audiobook as well. Narrator was fine. He wasn't like amazing. He wasn't bad. And you know what? I said that was my last book. I did have one DNF, and I do want to talk about it. I am running out of time. I am taking forever on this video, but let's talk about my DNF really quick. I tried to read The Importance of Being Emma by Juliet Archer, I believe is the name of the author. I got this a long time ago. This is another one of my older books that have been sitting on my Kindle forever. I read her other book, Persuade Me, and I really, really enjoyed it. At least I remember really, really enjoying it. This book is a modern retelling of Emma. Persuade Me was Persuasion, as one can imagine. Now, there was a lot about this book that was just... So, I'm not going to rate it because I didn't finish it. But I read enough of this book, and I had a really big conflict with it, that I'm going to talk about it. So, it started off as like a 3-star kind of a book. Like, it was fine. It's basically Emma is a business lady, and it's more of like a business environment. And we've got this thing of like, Emma has these ideas for the company, but people aren't sure if they want to take Emma's new ideas or not. That's the basic concept. The characterization, first of all, it's hard to imagine Emma sticking to something that she actually got a degree in business. Pretty hard to believe. Secondly, the Mr. Knightley character was a prick. Like, he was... The thing is, in the books, Emma needs guidance and whatnot, and they try to have this happen with, like, he's trying to, like, be a mentor to her, but he's also super condescending when he doesn't need to be. Like, she hasn't done anything wrong, and he's being condescending. And also, I felt like the Harriet Smith character was made way too stupid. Like, I'm fine with Harriet Smith not being the smartest, you know, she's not the sharpest tool in the shed, but, like, there's a limit. Like, there's a point where I'm, like, feeling kind of bad for her, because I'm like, I don't think she's supposed to be that dumb. Okay. So, the thing about this book that made me DNF it is, and this, I got 64% in this baby, and I finally gave up. There is an event that happens in the book between Emma and Knightley that is not, you know, from the original Emma, and that's fine. I'm okay with changing things up. Like, honestly, I'm fine with that. But the way he behaves afterward is terrible. He says some really horrible things to her that I could not imagine redemption. And I understand, like, with these kind of books, like, you know, part of it is to redeem a character, but, like, the situation and the, you know, it's questionable consent, first of all, in the situation that I was upset about. And also, like, the Emma character had a lot more on the line. And he basically had hurt feelings because she had feelings for the Frank Churchill character. I mean, but, like, he said, like, the way he reacted was very smarmy, as opposed to being like, oh my God, you don't remember something? You don't remember what happened? And I'm trying not to spoil it, but I'm kind of spoiling it. First of all, I doubt anyone is even going to watch this far. Second of all, even if you do watch this far, I doubt that you care about reading this book anyway. So, anyway, let's just say that I just didn't find him redeemable. there was nothing he could do or say that would redeem him in my eyes. He was horrible. So I was done. I was like, peace out. I'm done with this. So I didn't finish it. Not going to rate it because I didn't finish it, but man, not a fan. Okay. That is finally it. And I will see you guys next month. I don't know if I should try to do like partway through the month updates or not. We'll see how it goes. Hope you're all doing well. If you actually got this far and you actually watched the whole thing, which I will be shocked if anybody does, leave me a flower emoji. You don't have to say anything else. And I hope you're all doing well. Bye.